Creating success out of failure. Creating success out of failure.
I'm Jonathan Federa. I'm here to inspire you to hustle and grow your income while doing what you love. Just because you have problems doesn't mean you can't prosper. Just because you have tragedy doesn't mean you can't triumph. Actually, you should be taking advantage of that.
There's positivity in my pain. I took scarcity and turned it into strength. I always tell lies, there's not much you can do to me where I won't make an obstacle an opportunity. We never lose, we only learn lessons. If you wanna change your perspective. If you don't know how to do that, we'll show you how right now. Cause it's about to go down. You are tuning in to creating success out of failure. Creating success Creating success out of failure. Out of failure.
Hey everybody, welcome to Creating Success Out of Failure. I'm here with Evan, and I have a very special guest for you, someone that doesn't really need too much of an introduction. Marshall Sylver. Marshall, why don't you introduce yourself, tell us what you do?
I'm a hypnotist, and hello everybody. As you know, I've been on the platform for 50 years, and my job is to help people come to reality, come to realities that actually serve them, and help them identify hypnosis that might be harming them. So timing is perfect. We got a lot of hypnosis going on in the world.
We do. So I just want to say this. I've seen Marshall live tons of times. Amazing. Just works his magic. That's the only way I could describe it. So why don't we talk about currently what's going on with everything?
I'm at my beach house. So if you can see the wild pattern behind me, I'm actually in the theater inside the beach house. So we've got, 10 chairs in here. Very comfortable environment, and a real great soundproof environment too.
Nice.
Last week, I was doing an event for a guy named Steve Olsher. And Steve is a guy that teaches people how to do podcasts. Great guy, great event. And his attendance was off about 50%. And I said, what's going on? He said, it's that damn virus. Everybody just canceled the last minute. I didn't think much of it. My sales were strong and everybody was very responsive, thought it was really good. Came back the next day and I heard that the NBA had canceled all their games for the season. And I said, uh-oh. The next day, I go on my email, and a number of my clients with events through 2020 said that they were going to have to postpone the events because of the virus. This is Friday the 13th. And my jaw literally hit the table, and I went, oh, my gosh. Doing some research at that point, I think there were 11 deaths, maybe 1,000 people infected. And the following weekend, obviously, as everything has ramped up throughout the weekend and this week, and more cancellations of everything occurred. At first, they said, if you have a group of people that's 250 people or more, you need to postpone your event. And I went, that's my business right there. That's my whole business. And then they said, if you have a group of 50 people or more, we recommend that you don't, get together. Forgive me, I had a cold and flu bug last week, and I'm fine. And then they said, hey, if you've got a group of 10 or more, you're okay, but no more than 10. And then they said, hey, why don't you just stay home? And then they said, if you stay home and there's more than 10, kick a couple up. And so that's hypnosis going on. I have chatted with a lot of my friends in the medical community. And again, not everybody's going to agree with anything I say. I don't need anybody to agree with me. I don't need to agree with you or anybody else. If we have a different opinion, maybe we can throw all of our opinions in a pot and take a look at what, would be the most blatant reality. The one thing I want to say about this entire show, though, no matter when you're watching this, first rule, do not panic. Do not get upset. Don't become afraid. Don't think the sky's falling and zombies are going to be running around. And it's not likely that people are going to be breaking into your house to get your water or your toilet paper. We'll talk about that, too, in a moment.
Well, maybe the toilet paper.
Maybe the toilet paper. And I'll tell you why the toilet paper happened the way that it happened. The toilet paper was a test run to see what people would do on food. And I'll get to that a little later in this conversation.
Okay.
So at any rate, as I saw it all going on, I started contacting all of my friends, all the doctor friends that I have. And, I have a couple ER doctor friends, and I've got some other MDs that I'm close with. And I said, especially to the ER doctors, I said, how many cases are you seeing? Yep. Both of them said, well, one said none. I said, how many tests have you done? He said, none. I said, the other one said he had done 2. He had done 1 2 days ago, and he did 1 today. He was driving home from work today when I chatted with him. And I said, that's weird. He said, it is a little strange, Marshall. He said, I did 5 influenza tests yesterday. He said, so, we get way more testing for influenza than this COVID-19. And so I said, does it make any sense to you, to all the doctors? And the one I was talking to today, he said, it doesn't. He said, something interesting is going on. He's in Arizona. He said, in Arizona, obviously it's hot and it's dry. I said, so's Vegas. And they just shut the whole city down. He said, I don't know what to say. Well, on that note, when I saw they were shutting down all the casinos in my hometown, I said, something else is going on here. Something else is definitely going on. So a few things that, you should know. Number one, I don't think it's a bad idea to stay home for a couple of weeks. I mean, there's nothing really wrong with that. It's not sky is falling. When I saw all my business, though, had gone away for the rest of the year, pretty much the majority of it, I started thinking, I've got a mortgage on my house in Vegas. I've got a mortgage on the house in California. I own a theater here in California that also has a mortgage. And I was getting concerned. So I started doing research, and I've been watching the briefings every single morning with Trump. And if you're not watching those briefings, by the way, you should watch the briefings because they say a lot more than is being said even. So there's a lot of stuff you can see underneath the surface. And I'll get to something that I just noticed on this morning's that just had me howling with laughter because it only reaffirmed more of what I believe to be true. So the COVID-19, the coronavirus, is definitely a virus, like any flu bug. But what people don't know or haven't paid attention to is tens of thousands of people die every single flu season. Not 100, where they're saying we're at with COVID right now. And they couldn't possibly know because some things they say are connected to this or connected to that. They don't know for sure on everything. It might have been influenza. And again, anybody that's suffering, anybody that's sick right now. I was sick last week with the flu bug. I was sick last week, pretty nasty cold. I'm on the tail end of the cold, coughing up, every once in a while. I'm not going anywhere, and you're not going anywhere. And if you're watching this right now, chances are you're not going anywhere. And the thing that I want you to know, though, is that never in my lifetime have I seen anything of this magnitude, where not only is our country on lockdown, almost every other country on the planet is on lockdown, and they're doing it in steps. Just like they said, hey, if it's a group of 250 or more, don't hold the event. Oh, 50 or more, 10 or more. That's a standard sales tactic. That's getting people to accept small commitments so you can get them to expect and allow larger commitments. And we just saw a bunch of people down in Florida. They're celebrating spring break, and the police had to come in and say, guys, you're supposed to be home, not supposed to be here. The beaches are closed. Yeah. And they're going to keep nudging people. They're going to keep nudging people more and more and more and more. Here's one thing, and I don't care whether you like Trump. I don't care if you hate Trump. It doesn't really matter. This isn't a political conversation. A lot of things going on right now. People worried about losing their homes. And I know because you're in the financial industry, you realize that. Every major bank has already agreed to, and legislation is being passed and will pass almost immediately for forbearance. And what forbearance is a repositioning of the loan. You know what it is. So let's imagine I have a mortgage in my house in Vegas, and they say, hey, has your business been impacted by the virus? And I say, absolutely. They shut everything down. Nevada shut my business down. Even if I wanted to do my business in other areas, nationally, we can't have more than 50 people in a room. So I can't do business. We're shut down right now. They take the loan, and they may make an arrangement where they say, you don't have to make any payments for 12 months. You have forbearance. You don't have to make payments for 12 months. That eases off the financial pressure. They may still charge interest during that time. No big deal, just interest. And then you start paying it back in 12 months when you're back on your feet, your business is roaring. Which, by the way, I want to tell you, when the H1N1 flu came around, the swine flu came around, we were down and out of business pretty badly, pretty severely for about 3 months. And then after the flu passed, because it always does, after the flu passed, we soared again in the economy, as much as soaring could be said in the Obama administration. I promise you. This economy, our economy here in the United States and even worldwide, we were on fire 2 weeks ago. It was the best we've ever seen. Lowest unemployment, stock market through the roof. We were on fire. Yep. The only thing that changed is a virus came up. A virus that was in China, came over here. What a surprise. People travel around the world. And 10 people up in Seattle, Washington, or I think Seattle, in Washington for sure, died. All 10 people that were in Seattle, the initial people that died, were all in a assisted living home. They were all already sick or elderly, considerably elderly, and they all died. They had very suppressed immune systems. Yep. That said, the mainstream media has been beating up President Trump for 3 years, beating him up before he became president. And since the Russian collusion didn't work, Since the hookers in Russia didn't work, since the impeachment attempt didn't work, since attacks on his Supreme Court justices don't work, they got to find whatever they can. And I think what happened was we had a new flu strain. That's not unusual. There's new flu strains practically every single year. But what happened was mainstream media said, we can tank the economy with this story. And they started running the story. And it worked. And pretty soon people were jumping out of the stock market all over themselves. Well, it just came to light today that a number of senators that they sold right before, when they had been briefed prior to the general public knowing, they sold.
Yep.
And that's insider trading. You know, Martha Stewart had one case with $120,000 in total value. She went to prison over that. So we're going to see some heads roll. But there's more to this. So imagine Trump, who at first said, this is just a flu bug. It's not a big deal. Mainstream media is fanning the flames. They're making it worse. That's what he said initially. I trust my president. I've shared the stage with him on over 30 occasions. I've sat backstage, talked man to man. I know what kind of a man he is. I know what kind of a heart he has. And so the other thing, though, I know Trump is so freaking smart. He makes them play right into their own mess. You know, when they said, when Adam Schiff said he had irrefutable proof that there was grounds for impeachment, irrefutable proof that grounds for impeachment. After the impeachment failed, we said, where's the proof? He didn't have any proof. So they just flat out like to lie.
Yep.
And so what I believe is that at one point Trump said, and again, there's a good ending to this story. So if you're watching this podcast right now or this broadcast, there's a really good ending to this, and I want you to have faith. My company is called Certainty International for a reason. Certainty is the absence of doubt. Where there is certainty, doubt cannot exist. And right now, there's a whole lot of doubt being formed and a whole lot of fear being flamed. So at any rate, Trump at one point had to realize that they were not going to stop and that mainstream media was going to keep going on this pandemic. And so I think at one point he said, okay, maybe I'm wrong, and maybe I need to err on the other side. But there's another benefit to this. Imagine, if you will, that there is a president that one of his promises while he was campaigning back in 2016 was to drain the swamp. If President Trump were to drain the swamp of all the criminals that are actually in our government, and we all know, everybody watching this, I don't care what side of the line you're on, I don't care if you're not on any side of the line, we all know there are substantial criminals inside of our government, inside of every government around the world. Absolutely. If I'm thinking I want to drain the swamp, I can't go, even if it's true, I can't go arrest Barack Obama and say, you spied on my election, that's treason. You attempted to tip the election toward Hillary Clinton, that is treason. That's manipulating an election. I can't do that. The reason I can't do that is there's a number of people that would riot in the streets. They burn cars, they burn down houses, they go out and inflict pain and injury on people. But if I'm able to get everybody to stay home, get everybody to stay with each other, potentially, and this is my belief, because again, as a hypnotist for the last 35 years, I know how the mind works. And so whenever I see something that doesn't make sense, I say, okay, in what world would this make sense? In what frame of mind would this make sense? Right now, I don't think there's anybody watching the show that thinks it makes any sense with the small number of people that have been, relative to everything, the small number of people that have been afflicted, and the smaller number of people that have actually died. It doesn't make sense for the NBA and the NHL and the MGM casinos to all shut down. It's too expensive. Doesn't make any sense whatsoever. So for them to do it, number one, they've got to believe it's a pandemic. They've got to believe that they would have some kind of liability if they had that large number of people all in the same place. One of the comments that the Nevada governor made was, I want any business shut down that has any kind of a poker machine, has any kind of a table, has any kind of cards that people would touch and exchange, any kind of chips they would exchange. So what he was shutting down was anything that germs could have been left on, because they just don't know where this is going. So if I'm a business owner, I'm the MGM, even if I have 15,000 employees, which they did, and I know that the liability could probably shut me down anyway, I am likely to shut it down temporarily. Go on a wait it out, especially if the president of the United States called me and said, I need you to do this. Short term, need you to do this. Can't tell you how long it's going to take, but I will tell you it's not going to be years. You'll be back in business. Everything will roar back to business, which is what he said today on the briefing. Everything's going to roar back better than it was before, which I'm positive of, I'm certain. But imagine if all of that was cover for something else. Imagine if that was cover to drain the swamp. Imagine if everybody's home and everybody's finally gotten to the point where, and the pressure is going to get stronger and stronger for people to stay home. Do not leave your house. Back to the toilet paper. What a weird thing for people to go crazy over. Why in the world do people think, oh my God, we're going to run out of toilet paper? It's misinformation. And because the sheep always do what the sheep do, that misinformation, it's harmless if somebody runs out of toilet paper. You can use the newspaper. You can use grass or leaves from your backyard. It's harmless. But if there's a run on the food and half the people got the food, half the people didn't, that's a little bit different. They wanted to see how people were going to respond, and we saw. Here in California, they don't allow more than 15 people at a time into the supermarkets. There's plenty of food on the shelves, plenty for everybody. My family, in both of our homes, we have a 6-month supply of ration food, of freeze-dried food. And we also have a substantial amount of regular food so that, if this goes on for 2 weeks, a month, 6 weeks, we'll be okay. Everybody watching this, first thing you want to get is make sure you have a supply of clean water. Drink your tap water. Make sure you have a supply of clean water just in case something happens to the water. Next, definitely make sure you have at least 2 weeks food. There was somebody online this past week that said, anybody that grabs enough food for 2 weeks is a selfish, I forget what they said. They would say just selfish, human being. I said, or maybe somebody who worked their butts off enough to be able to get 2 weeks worth of food. And he called me a couple of names, and I stepped out of the conversation because there's no way to win that. But again, if you don't have 2 weeks worth of food, figure out what you can do. If you have to start eating less to make that last at least 2 weeks, do that. Whatever you need to do, do that. Back to the story at hand. If I am wanting to make those deep state arrests, if I know I've got proof, I've got the evidence, then what I want is everybody to be at home by themselves, not to see it actually. Because my belief of what's going to happen is if they started seeing it, then what would happen is the other deep state criminals would see what was going on, and they'd say, we got to get out of the country. Oops.
I got it.
Borders are blocked in every country. Or somebody's in another country already, and they say, okay, we got to make an escape. You can't leave. Nobody's getting through the border either way now. Everybody's contained. How clever is that?
Yeah.
But also, here's what I think will likely happen. If it were me, this is how I would do it. I would black out all the media, because mainstream media obviously just makes up lies. It's all propaganda. The internet is all propaganda. So if it were me and I wanted to get this thing handled and get ahead of it, number one, what I would do is I would black out all the media. I would not let publishers publish anything. I would momentarily take down the internet, except about 18 months ago, you did, I did, everybody got a text message from who? President Trump, simultaneously. I remember I was sitting in a cafe with my wife, and my phone dinged for a text message. Her phone dinged for a text message, and every phone that was in our proximity dinged at the same time. We all looked at it, and everybody looked at each other and went, wow. Every person in the country got a text message. During the briefings, Trump keeps saying something that I find fascinating. It's always important to pay attention to what words did somebody select. He said, we're fighting an invisible enemy. We're fighting an invisible enemy. He keeps saying that. He says that more than the virus. We're fighting an invisible enemy. As soon as we've beaten this invisible enemy, he's not just talking about a virus. He's talking about the rest of the invisible enemy. And so imagine during that time, though, that they're arresting people. They're putting them down and getting them. They're locking them up. And you're also receiving a message from your president. We have cut off all communication to all people. This is for your safety. Please remain at home while we fight this invisible enemy. Very soon, we'll restore your TVs, your internet. All things are good. Have faith in the plan. Have faith in the plan is Q. I don't know if you follow Q at all. Q says that there's a plan in place and that people are being, the indictments have already been made. They're being unsealed as we speak. Well, interesting thing, I saw a video. Have you seen the video circulating of Ellen DeGeneres doing magic?
No.
So Weinstein obviously got charged, ended up being convicted, got 23 years in prison. If I'm Epstein, if I'm Weinstein, if I'm anybody that committed the atrocities that they committed, and I have dirt on other people who committed those atrocities with me, forgive me, I'm rolling over. It's human nature. You tell me you're going to put me in prison for 100 years, or if I say who else committed the same exact crimes that I did, you'll give me 10, I'll tell you. And I don't care how how much of a BA you think you are, almost everybody would do that. And so
You
what
can
I
curse
think
on here,
is,
Marshall, by the way.
was that?
You can let it out. You can curse.
I'm excited. These are the best of times.
I know. I'm loving this.
So my belief is Weinstein rolled. My belief is Epstein was about to, and that's why they killed him.
Yep.
Weinstein rolled. And so they have more intel. They have more absolute proof. Because you can't come out after anybody without absolute proof in this day and age because of the way mainstream spins stuff.
I agree.
So let's imagine, again, I don't know if I'm right. I don't know if I'm wrong. It sure looks like this is what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing that I know has to be happening, and I don't know what your take on this is, in the last week, the Federal Reserve, which is neither federal nor reserve, did quantitative easing of $1.5 trillion in the economy.
Yep.
As you may well know, $9 trillion was added to the economy during the Barack Obama administration. Not only that, they did what they did for Barack Obama. They reduced the interest rate back to zero again. It didn't help the market one iota.
Nope.
Normally, that would help the market. Didn't help it one iota. And the reason it didn't is mainstream media was still screaming every day, this virus is going to kill everybody. Okay, yep. I don't know why people take their money out of the market if everybody's going to be dead anyway. It doesn't really matter. I digress. So now you've got all that money, and the Federal Reserve pouring all this money into the economy. Nothing's changing, and people are going, "Oh my God, we got to pay that back." Maybe we do, maybe we don't. People say different things. We owe $9 trillion to China. We owe $8 trillion to Spain. No, we don't. We owe all that money to the Federal Reserve. That's who we owe the money to.
Yep.
The challenge is, yes, the monster from Jekyll Island. The challenge is that creature from Jekyll Island isn't owed anything. They didn't give us anything. They gave us keystrokes on a computer. They gave keystrokes to the Treasury. The Treasury then gave keystrokes to all the other banks. And somehow we've got this money that we've got to pay back as citizens with interest. Mm-hmm. If you're going to default on a loan, if you're going to go bankrupt, you might as well go bankrupt for $1 billion rather than $1 million. So right before you're about to go bankrupt, you go and see how much more can I get? How much more can I get? If I was Trump, what I would want to do is I would want to have the Federal Reserve pour as much as they can into the economy. And then at one point, when I had all the ducks in a row, I would turn to the Federal Reserve and say, you know what? We're not doing business with you anymore. And we're not paying you back either. You've stolen from the people for centuries. It's your time now to feel the pain. That's what I would do. And Trump's just the kind of a guy that would do it.
Okay.
So what that would mean, number one, it would mean that we're not paying back a ridiculous amount of debt, which means the government has substantially more money to operate. Secondly, the government doesn't need the amount of people that they have. You drive down the street and you see the city workers fixing a pothole. There's 12 guys standing around the pothole. There's one guy that's actually fixing the pothole. Well, fire the 12 guys. They're not needed. They're not necessary there. And it gets deeper and worse everywhere you go, from the Postal Service through everything. So, number one, it would eliminate the Federal Reserve, which eliminates the debt. Number two, we could also eliminate the IRS and income taxes. Have a flat sales tax across the board. If you're going to spend money, pay money for, you're taxed on what you spend. Other than that, they'll keep 100% of your wages. There's no real reason for an income tax. That came along with the Federal Reserve. So I think we're about to see some major things going on. Trump this morning announced that the government would pay for sick leave, not the companies, that anybody that couldn't work because of what was going on, the government would pay for that sick leave. And the amount of money that he's talking about is staggering. Where's that going to come from? Well, imagine you just eliminated $24 trillion in debt. We create our own national currency. The Treasury takes over our currency in the United States. Imagine that happening worldwide, though. Effectively putting the central banks out of business because there's no purpose for them. They don't serve any purpose. People say, oh, the world would fall apart. No. Many, many, many years ago, I think it was England, was being financed by another country. And they were borrowing money from that country, borrowing money. And finally they said, you know what, we can't pay you back. And they just printed their own currency. And their economy flourished. Why? Money, especially fiat currency, is hypnosis. It's worth whatever you think it is. What's more valuable, a moped or a Rolls Royce?
Rolls Royce.
Well, it depends. If you live on the top of a mountain and there's only goat path access to the top of that mountain, that moped is infinitely more valuable. And so what it comes down to circumstance. It comes down to what do we believe to be true? How much faith do we have in the world? with what Trump is doing right now, the way he goes about everything, he sought after and is creating fair trade deals, meaning you can't buy anything not made in China without paying exorbitant taxes on it. If I want to buy a German vehicle, if I want to buy Mercedes-Benz in China, I'm going to pay 100% to 150% more than that car is worth just to buy it in China, because China wants all the money to stay there. What country wouldn't want it to stay there?
Of course.
In one fell swoop, with this virus going on, Trump levels the playing field with tariffs, gives incentives for manufacturers to bring their factories back to the U.S., gives them tax breaks to make sure the money stays here, and does everything every other president before him should have done that didn't, because they were getting rich on our backsides.
I would love, and I really hope that that's right. It makes sense. Here's present day. Here are the questions I have about it, right? Obviously, I lend to all types of small businesses. And a lot of, I would probably say 40 to 50% of the clients that I know, or my potential clients right now, are going
one
out.
Paycheck away from going broke.
Yeah, they're there. Basically, like the restaurants, okay? Most anything that relies on foot traffic right now. And the problem, or the challenge that I see, is that they have the disaster relief SBA loan.
Right.
What no one is saying is the SBA did not lower their guidelines to qualify. So I have 20 people right now sitting in line for SBA loans, none of them the disaster relief, and everyone that's applying for the disaster relief thinking they're going to get it, they didn't lower they didn't lower that criteria. So short term liquidity is completely, the lines of credit I used to offer dried up. Like there's a lot of, the market liquidity is gone right now. So how do you feel that plays in to that? And then how do those small business owners that make up, I think, 70 or 80% of our, economy, how does that come back in this?
A few things. Let's imagine we've got a restaurateur, and the restaurateur is interrupted right now. They're shut down. And so they've been losing revenue for the past weeks. It's only been a week. That's the thing. It's hard to remember. It's only been a week that this is going on. They're shut down for a week. And could they survive a week shutdown? Probably. Could they survive 2? Probably. 3, 4, now it starts to stretch. Now, at a month, it starts, how do we recover? Well, number one, they didn't have any expenses during that time. If there is also forbearance on the rent, which I'm almost certain legislation is going to be passed to tell people, if you are a landlord, your mortgage has been forbeared on. You don't have to pay the mortgage that month. You don't get a profit, but nobody got a profit due to the circumstances. So almost certainly the lease is going to be forgiven. Your employees weren't working. You didn't pay them. And unfortunately, they didn't have any money to go eat. Everything will work it out in that time. But yes, people are going to hurt. There's no way around that. And it breaks my heart to know that, except my belief. And I'm reading between the lines and I'm listening to what's being said. Trump said, this could go on through the summer. I don't think that's the case. Number one, the flu bug doesn't live during the summer. It dies. Secondly, he keeps hinting that it could be faster. Now, if I want to get you an exotic automobile and you make it very specific and you want to get it as quick as you can, of course, except I say, you know what? I think I can get that delivered to you in 2 months. If I get it delivered to you in 2 months, I kept my word. If I get it delivered to you in a month, I'm a hero.
Absolutely.
And so I think that's what's going on. He's managing expectations, and he's been dropping so many hints. There is a video that's crazy right now of Ellen DeGeneres. And Ellen DeGeneres says, hey, you want to see some magic? Ordinary deck of cards. Have you seen this?
No.
She's ordinary deck of cards. And she looks horrible in this video. It's at her house. She looks really stressed, like somebody's got a gun to her head, actually. And she takes the card. She says, I'm going to cut to the 4 of hearts. Oh, 6 of diamonds. I'm going to do this 3 times. Oh, 6 of clubs. Shoot. One more time. Oh, 5 of spades. Oh, well, just have to practice it. If you're Ellen DeGeneres and you do something that's, number one, not funny, number 2, didn't work, you don't broadcast it.
Yeah.
Unless there's a reason to broadcast it. What do 6, 6, and 5 add up to? 17. What's the 17th letter of the alphabet? Q, as in QAnon. They're signaling they're on to us. I come from Hollywood. You know, I was seduced on numerous occasions. I had many people through the course of my teen years, adults during my course of my teen years, attempt to seduce me. And it's a dirty place. So is the church. So is everything. The thing is, some people have the fortitude, fortunately, to say no. Get away from me. Keep your hands off. My career isn't that important to me. Get away from me. And unfortunately, some don't. And some don't think they have choices. And so I think that the thing that's going to come out, and this is going to be the shocking stuff that nobody wants to believe, because if horrible, horrible, horrible things are going on, it's almost easier to bury our head in the sand. Mm-hmm. Epstein was a child sex trafficker. There's no argument about that. It's well known. Everybody knows that. What people don't understand is the reason, not all, the reason the big players want abortion so much is if a woman decides at the last minute she doesn't want to have a baby and goes to Planned Parenthood. And again, I'm not seeking to make anybody angry. It's my opinion. If you have a different one, God bless you. But if this woman wants to go and have that abortion, those parts are worth a lot of money. It's on tape, on film. They're talking about how much those body parts are worth. There's only one thing worth more than those body parts: a living baby. To be trafficked, to be sold at, again and again and again. That's what the general public would have a really hard time believing. They say, oh, no, it couldn't be that way. I know that. I know what that feeling is. I remember when my ex-wife was cheating on me with two of the pastors at the church, including the counselor that was trying to save our marriage. I thought he was. I said, there's no way it couldn't be, until the pastor got arrested for having sex with his patients. I said, it was exactly what I thought it was. My best friend was managing my company. I found there's over $1 million gone. I couldn't figure out where it was. I discovered she'd been embezzling it from me. When I saw the evidence, the proof, irrefutable, I said, couldn't be. She's my best friend. How could this be? The challenge is we're about to see things, guaranteed, that are going to make people be in disbelief. Here's the other side of the coin. If the Fed is eliminated, which I believe it's going to be, okay, if the IRS is eliminated and the tax structure is changed, you got to keep in mind, Trump is not a politician. He's a businessman. He's just running this whole thing like a business.
And we needed somebody to do that for a long time.
We do. And the greatest president of all time, in the face of absolute, complete resistance, not just resistance, attacks, nonstop, daily attacks, all the time. He said something today. He said, I'll take that back to the state. He says, no, I'll take that back to the deep state, as we like to call it.
I saw that.
He's trolling them publicly now. You don't troll a bully unless you have the goods.
Yes.
You don't be that blatant again and again and again unless you have the goods. So, I've been following Q since 2017, fall of 2017, when QAnon first started publishing. And so much of what was predicted is happening now. The celebrities that all seem to have gotten sick, it's disproportionate. The number of celebrities that have gotten the flu bug, it's disproportionate. How could that be? Unless it's not what it seems to be. And usually when something isn't what it seems to be, it's not.
I believe
so back to your question. Here's what I say. If you are a small business person, if you are struggling, if credit lines you used to have are unavailable, do your very best right now just to survive. It's sometimes, as much as we don't see it in the moment, sometimes the business we thought we had to keep isn't the one we were supposed to be in anyway. Maybe somebody has a business and the restaurant was just struggling. Month after month, just struggling. Maybe that's not supposed to be your business. Maybe you're supposed to walk away from it. For those that don't want to walk away from it and really know that they have the right business, have certainty. Figure out what's working. Go to your employees and tell them, as I went to my employees and I said, look, guys, we are effectively out of business right now. And although, I love you and I appreciate your loyalty, you've got to understand from my point of view, if I can't hold events, I don't earn any money. And if I'm only doing digital events online, I don't need you. I apologize. And so what I did was I cut them back 75% and 75% of their time. So they're getting 25% wages while we see what's going on. And they're doing, 2 hours of work a day. So if you have to scale down, do that. The employees will understand, I promise you. Well, they may not like it. They're not going to think it's you. They're going to know it's the circumstance. Also, though, during this downtime, it's really important to ponder. It's really important to think about how could we do things differently. Uber has effectively put the taxi business out of business.
Absolutely.
The day that I realized that they were saying if you have more than 250 people, you can't hold an event in California, and now Nevada, now anywhere, I went, holy crap, I've got to rethink my business. And so I immediately said, you know what? It is time to do what you've been putting off and put everything digital. So should this ever happen again, you have another means to deliver it.
Absolutely. I've been telling people every project that you've had to build the machine that is your business, that's what you should be doing right now. Absolutely.
Perfect.
I agree. So quick question. I actually, everything that you have said has made sense. And I would love to see that happen. And I hope it does. If it doesn't, with what we've discussed with the SBA disaster programs.
And I would agree with you, Jonathan, on that.
Yeah.
They didn't change anything. And the SBA loan, as you know, is the hardest loan to get.
Absolutely. Absolutely. But my question is, obviously you see spending's down across the board. Unemployment's going to go way, way up. More businesses are going to fail. The Fed has essentially shot all their bullets. All they can do now is spend more money. So I think if that doesn't if that is the route it goes, right, and the Fed isn't eliminated, and what we're going to see is a very deep and long recession. Would you agree with that?
I wouldn't. You got to keep in mind again. Let's imagine that scenario is what plays out. A lot of people go out of business. There's a lot of unemployment. There are businesses that aren't struggling. They're not paycheck to paycheck. They could just shut the doors for 30 days, and they're going to go to their landlords, and they're going to say, look, we can't be in business. Mm-hmm. This is force majeure. So we're not going to pay you rent during this time. If I am a landlord and a bunch of people have gone out of business, I know that if I don't work with my tenant, number one, there's a lot of broke people. So the odds of me leasing the place are also diminished. Number two, if there are, let's imagine it's restaurants, and we have 12 restaurants, 6 of them go out of business. Mm-hmm. The economy comes back. There's no flu bug, back to business as usual. Well, now I've got all these people that used to go to these 6 restaurants standing in line over here at these restaurants. So these restaurants flourish and they open up new restaurants.
Of course.
So again, anytime we have any economic turndown or anything that causes the velocity to slow down, then you're going to have that, and people are going to suffer, and people are going to take 2 steps backwards to take a flying leap forward.
I agree.
So my belief is, no matter what happens, will people be hurt during this? They already are. Will we recover? Absolutely. We always do, in a bigger and better way. The thing about what's going on right now that is unique, and it's the most unique occurrence in my whole lifetime. Mm-hmm. Anybody that's, a baby boy, it's the most unprecedented for the whole world to shut down. Mm-hmm. Step 1 in a 12-step program is to acknowledge there's a problem. Acknowledge that it exists. I'm out of control, God. Help me out here. That's the truth. And it's like waking up from the Matrix. And we're waking up from the Matrix right now. And a lot of people won't want to hear. They won't want to know what's going on. It will absolutely sicken them to their core. Mm-hmm. Except once you're sick to the core, you go, okay, they were eating babies. They were trafficking children right underneath our noses. Everything those conspiracy theory people were saying was actually true.
Yep. So I have somebody I deeply respect. You've been on his podcast. He's a coach. I'm not going to say his name here because it's confidential and private. But he told us 2 or 3 months ago that there was something that was going to happen prior. It's an election year. He can see the economy shaking out. I think you know who I'm talking about. He lives close to you. Okay. So what would be the next sign or next shoe to drop in this scenario if this plays out?
Again, when you look at things, when things don't make sense, they make sense from another context.
Yep.
When my ex and I would go to this counselor, the first thing the counselor would always say is, you guys need to separate, not talk to each other. And I would always say, how does that get us back together? What happens? Some magic happens because we didn't spend time together? Well, when he got arrested for having sex with one of his patients, it all made complete sense to me. Because in that context, he was cock-blocking me. He just wanted me out of the relationship so that he could have sexual relations with her.
Yep.
So, again, the thing that doesn't make any sense, we survived AIDS. We survived Ebola. We've survived all these other very similar strains. Mm-hmm. and the whole world didn't shut down. Did a lot of people die? A lot more than have died right now died. Absolutely. And everybody say, oh, the numbers over here are 1,000, or in Italy they're up to 4,800. How many people died of the common flu the year before? I guarantee you it was bigger than that number. Guaranteed.
Absolutely.
Oh, but this is different. This one is even more contagious. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. We don't really know yet. So for this early in the game, for everything to shut down, it's not about the flu. It's about something different. Mm-hmm. It's election year. If Trump was going to drain the swamp, he would want to drain it now. And if he had, if somebody handed him the means to do that, he would do it now.
Yep.
Talking about pardoning Flynn, talking about all the disgraced people in the DOJ and the CIA and the FBI that are clearly criminals. The mainstream media has done a really good job of making President Trump, seem like this bad guy with orange hair. You can't tell me what he's actually done. He's a misogynist. He hires more women than any administration previously. Mm-hmm. Oh, he's racist. How is he racist? He said it was a Chinese virus. It came from China. They called it the Spanish flu. The Spanish flu. It came from Spain. And so at the end of it all, people have to be woke up. They've got to come out of their hypnosis. They've got to, and I think they are. We've got people that used to speak out continuously against Trump, whether they're guilty and they know they are and they don't want to get beat up or put in jail. They're being nice now. We've got a country that's more unified now than it's been in the last 3 years, because we all know we're all in this together. And we've got to get through this together.
Absolutely.
Regardless of what happens, we've got a lot of resource inside the government. We've got literally unlimited funds, unlimited money, because it's fiat currency. Mm-hmm. If the government were to reclaim the control of the currency, if they were to regain control of the currency, they're going to replace all those Federal Reserve notes with Treasury notes, and everybody's going to be better than when they were. So unemployment may take a beating right now. Half the people in the population out of work because all those businesses are closed. But I promise you, the majority of the businesses are going to reopen. Some will not. The ones that are able to reopen will be stronger. The ones that are not, they'll find new homes. Promise you.
I agree. And
the biggest thing everybody can do is stick in this thing together. Stay at home with your family. If that's the case, if it's spreading because people are connected, then don't connect. For whatever reason, right now the administration wants us to just stay home. I'll give it a shot. I trust my president. I do. And I think everybody watching this should do the same.
I agree. So media blackout.
I think so. That's the only way that it'll make sense, because imagine.
You're right.
Imagine there isn't, and by the way, when I say media, I also mean the internet. They have to shut the internet down, because the only thing that's going to make all of this heal is real information, not misinformation or disinformation. So let's take a look at what's going on. There is a virus. We know that. Mm-hmm. It is highly contagious. We know that. So no matter what's going on, even if something is piggybacked on the back of this, there's no lies being told by Trump. Mm-hmm. If in addition to getting everybody quarantined to stop the flow of and growing of this virus, if he's also simultaneously able to take care of some other agendas, so be it.
Yeah, I dig it. Evan, you have any questions? You've been very quiet, my friend.
Just listening to everything, very interesting. Definitely a perspective that I hadn't thought of before. And it's just very interesting to hear. And I do hope that that's true, because then to know that the end result would be everything bouncing back, being stronger than before, is a very comforting thought. So, I'm definitely hopeful for that. No one can, of course, say, this will happen, which sucks, but I'm certain for that. The only thing is I would just be interested to see how everything, if you say the internet gets taken down for any length of time, I think that would be very interesting, because everyone's kind of come online now that most businesses have closed. My whole business, I do podcast production with Jonathan. My whole business is online, so I've luckily been able to be okay so far, but I'd be interested to see what happens if the whole internet gets shut down.
I don't think they would shut it down for too long. I think that would be something that would make people would panic.
It's just very interesting.
I think 7 to 10 days, maybe 2 weeks.
Yeah, that's just very interesting. It's just I don't have any questions, because I'm not, even though I'm very, very interested in economics and the economy and things like that, I'm not as knowledgeable, I'm sure, as either of you are. I haven't been in the game as long, but it's definitely a comforting thought to know that things can bounce back and come back even stronger afterwards. So, I'm just listening and taking it in. So very interesting.
Be certain everybody watching this broadcast, be certain we will come back stronger than we were. It might be painful for a little while, kind of like a flu bug. When you're sick, you cannot remember what it felt like to be healthy. And that fever doesn't leave you until it reaches its peak and it burns itself out. And at that point, you're at the worst of the worst. It's going to get worse. So manage your expectations. Go out, get whatever food you can afford right now. Stock up. If you can do a couple of weeks, do a couple of weeks. I don't know where anybody's watching this, and I'm not an alarmist. I just also like to err on the side of protection. If you own a gun legally, then by all means, make sure you have ammunition just in case people decide to go crazy. Because certainly if it goes on for too long, over a month and a half, 2 months, there's going to be some people going crazy. Take precautions. Watch, the people that you love. Make sure they're not straying too far. Make sure you're paying attention to everybody being calm and reminding each other that you love each other. And then finally, again, just have certainty.
Yeah.
We're going to get through this. We're going to be stronger than ever. I was on another podcast earlier today, and I was telling them I've been seeing miracles lately, like in abundance, like really odd, trippy stuff in nature. We had a rabbit in the middle of the yard here at the beach house. And I've never seen a rabbit ever. Not only was it right dead center in the middle of my backyard before the ocean, it stared at me for 30 minutes. My whole family came over and it just sat there staring at us. Wasn't moving at all.
Yeah.
And then it almost like nodded its head to say goodbye and slowly jumped away. The next day I'm at my computer and it's raining outside. And there's this little orange bird that flies around. And there's a plant right outside of my office window on a balcony. And there's a stick. It's not really a plant. It's just a stick sticking straight up. And this bird landed on the tip of that stick, which is 4 inches from my window, and stared at me again for like 30 minutes. And it was talking and just staring at me. There was the most awkward place for that bird to perch, but it had to go right there. The next day, we look out the window, and there's this most glorious rainbow over the ocean. It's gorgeous. It's so vivid. It's so beautiful. It's so big. And we're looking at the rainbow, and I look off in the distance, and I see a very large ship. It looked like a military vessel. And the vessel is moving from south to north, so it's coming up to the one arc of the rainbow. It gets into the arc of the rainbow. Now, mind you, they couldn't possibly know they were in the arc of a rainbow because they weren't in a rainbow. It turned a complete right-angle turn and stayed in that rainbow for an extended period of time while it was going away from shore, and then turned again and went. And I went, how did it do that? I mean, I believe in miracles. I believe in magic. I really do. I believe in God's miracles. And I believe that we've got some great stuff going on. I believe that everybody that's in pain, whatever pain you're suffering right now, I promise you, you're going to be blessed 10 times more than this. You are loved. You are appreciated. You matter on this planet. And always have certainty that everything happens for a reason and it serves us. God bless you.
You're right. Thank you, Marshall.
Thank you.
Thanks for tuning into the show. Thanks, Marshall.
Creating success out of failure.
Thanks for tuning in to Creating Success Out of Failure. Please share this with someone that needs to hear it, post it on social media, and leave us a 5-star review. I'll catch you on the next one.